Hey, everybody. Welcome to the podcast, The Jesus Method. I'm Fabrizio. There's Kyle somewhere and Micah. Today is our first episode, so I don't know what to expect, honestly. It's going to be fun, though, because we're going to be sharing our story. We're going to be sharing our testimony. Episode 1, this episode, I'm going to be sharing my story, and so is Micah. But catch for episode 2. because
he's so passionate, he couldn't get it out right.
Yeah, I know. But for episode 2, Kyle is going to be.
Look at your fingers like that.
Yeah, sorry. This is our first podcast.
I'm sorry, y'all. I'm a class clown. You have to forgive me.
Perfect, but we are following perfection, the Jesus method, and that's what the podcast is about. Following after Jesus. We're
Indeed.
talking culture, how Christians can impact culture, what we can do as men of God, and I know if we have ladies watching, how to be a woman of God too. But anyways, I hope y'all enjoy this. And I'm excited. How about y'all guys for this episode?
Nice transition. I saw you struggle. That was a nice transition word there. Good job, buddy.
Hey.
Me personally, I'm extremely excited. Y'all know I've been looking forward to this starting this podcast.
We've only been trying to start this for how long now? Months?
Months. That's all I can say.
No. I'm telling you, Micah, we've been trying to start this for like years now.
Yeah.
Like me and Kyle been talking about podcasts like almost 2 years ago now.
Long story short, Kyle texted us, was in this late December, and he was like, listen, we're doing this thing first start of January. You're with me or not with me? We're doing this. And we were like, all right.
Listen, bro, I had to do it that way or else we would still be saying we're going to do it.
He gave a date. He said, expiration day, we ain't doing it.
Mm-hmm. But anyways, we're going to be sharing our testimony. It's going to be, raw and unfiltered. We're just going to be talking about what we got to talk about.
I'm not sitting coughing like crazy. This is stupid.
Micah just coughed. Y'all excuse him. Ain't
sorry.
COVID.
No.
Sorry, say that then. Spot us.
This happens every time we go to record something. My lungs are like, no.
I'm about to cut all this out, my boy.
No, this is funny. Leave this in. This is funny stuff. Okay.
Anyways, so we're going to start off with Micah. And Micah's going to share his story. And we'll see how it's going to go. Micah, you're up on the plate.
This is a real nail biter, okay, guys? This is cliffhangers, nail biters. You're going to be so intense on your listening on your AirPods, your fancy little Beats, or wherever you got listening to. Okay, so my name is Micah. I've known both Kyle and Breezy for a hot minute. It's been years. We all went to the same, at different times went to the same Christian school, except for me and Breezy were there a period of time together. But I've been raised in church my whole life since I was little. Always been involved in church, done church camp, stuff like that. My faith wasn't really taken seriously until, I'm 21 now. So it was 5 years ago? Yeah, 16, right? Yeah, look at math, yay. But at like 16, long story short, I was in a somewhat relationship with a girl. Not really like dating or anything. It was just like talking, when like you go and like you say you're dating, but it's just like you go to a ball game, hang out with them, and that's your date. Like it wasn't like actually going out and doing things. But me and this girl talked for probably around 5 or 6 months, and things kind of went downhill. And things could have been handled better on both sides, but that situation put me in a really dark place because this person meant a lot to me. I'm not going to disclose the name because that's probably just private information. But I was just put in a really dark place because of that. And for like 6 months, I was just like basically feeling bad for myself. Like instead of just mourning what happened or like, being sad about it, I legit like let myself get to a worse place than where it should have been. And around a year, 6 more months passed after that, and we ended up going to a church camp, which we'd all been going to for a while, but I think this was our first year going all three together of us.
I'm sorry. I just I'm saying like, oh, we on the podcast right now recording. And I can't help it. I'm sorry.
I'm the same way. I laughed too. It's okay. It's cool. We haven't. I can't talk her anyways. But.
I'm gonna have to do a lot of editing.
yeah.
So, bro. Oh my goodness.
All right. Anyways,
Yeah.
so
Like
why
the-
that clap? Anyways, what? Oh, you're done. Okay. Anyways, we were all at church camp this year at the same time, all three of us. Church camp was going really well. You know, a good time. Spirit was moving. I think it was like maybe the third night. I'm not even gonna guess that. I'm probably getting it wrong. But anyways, at the time I had been really praying because I still really felt like this girl could be a part of my life or meant to be a part of my life. So I was still praying about it a lot, you know, seeking God with it. And one of the messages on the church camp, the title I can't remember. One thing I remember the preacher said was Corey Porterfield, and he said, even if you don't have the faith to believe it, God will still do it. And that like basically lit a fire in me, and it was really weird how this all happened. So like during the service he said that, and all the call went really great and all that. And then we went back to the dorm rooms. I look at my phone, and this person had me blocked for a while. And I went to my Instagram, and they had requested to follow me and a bunch of other stuff. So I was like, not that that meant that they were meant to be a part of my life, but it was just like, to me, that was like, wow, like that's kind of crazy. Like stuff just happened all at once. And after that, I started getting a lot better. At the time, I was still putting way too much, I guess, satisfaction in the fact that that person was in my life, which was the whole reason that God took her out in the first place. Because I literally had someone speak over my life at the camp and say that people didn't leave you. I just needed you closer to me. And that was a very true story because I wasn't seeking after God at that time. I was literally putting all of my what's the word? My like safety and my confidence in talking to this person instead of putting my confidence in God and the fact that He made me. So some time passes by, and that whole situation kind of goes away. It kind of falls away, and then around 4 years ago, my dad we went through a situation at our church where we went through some pastoral changes, and long story short, that one pastor didn't work out. I'm gonna go into detail with that, again, for privacy sakes. And then now my dad is the pastor of our church. So I went from being genuinely raised up in church, but not a pastor's kid, and now for the past 4 years I've been a pastor's kid, which is a change. Our church isn't the biggest church in the world, so I've been a pastor's kid for 4 years now. It's definitely a different environment than just growing up in church. I'm now every Sunday pretty much I'm playing drums or leading a song at some point or another, which I love doing, but it's definitely a different dynamic when you're just going to church to be there, and then now you're going to church to actually serve and be a part of something that's going out to the congregation or out to the people that are going to be in the church that day. And even learning that, like, not on Sunday, not on Wednesday, there's still a lot of stuff that happens. Like it's a lot of behind the scenes stuff people don't realize how much like goes into, decorating for Christmas even, or like, setting up a set list for Sunday, or, all this different stuff that goes on. You now get the behind the scenes, or sometimes I even have to create the set list or have to, go help get a play going or go do the sound or the, doing scriptures for my dad or whatever. Like all that's a different aspect of it. And but I wouldn't trade it for anything. Even though my story isn't the most wowing or most exciting, I literally got heartbroken and it led me to closer to Jesus. But I wouldn't trade it. Like I said, I mean, everybody's story is different, and I'm not where I want to be, but I'm better than where I was, and that's all I can really ask for with it.
Yeah, man. Like I remember because we also went to church. Me and Micah, we went to church like basically together, the same
For
church our
years.
whole life, basically our whole life.
Yeah.
And I remember when your dad wasn't the pastor and then transitioning to him being the pastor. I knew he was going to be the pastor when we were going through that transition. Like Micah's dad, Mr. Tim Vickers, brother Tim Vickers, Pastor Vickers. Like, yeah, I knew he was going to be the pastor just because, he seems like genuine guy
Yeah.
at God's heart and everything. But like talking about like what you said way before, like at one time, all three of us went to the same school together. I mean, we lived in the same
Well, not at the
state.
same time, but yeah, two of us at the same time.
Yeah.
Kyle,
Yeah,
well, you and
well,
Kyle did.
Yeah,
Right.
but also we was still a distance apart because he was only the same age as my sister. So like
Yeah.
we were still 4 or 5 years separated between me and Fabrizio, even though we went to the same school. I was a senior when he hit high school, so
Yeah.
And me and Kyle are several years apart.
Yeah. But
But-
even like, you know, we all grew up in the same area generally, almost, you know. And like the fact that we're all three doing some like completely different and stuff in life, it's awesome, you know, at the same time, you know. But yeah. I guess I have a question for you. Uh
I'm scared.
don't be scared, it's all good. Like, you went from not being a pastor kid basically your whole childhood.
Yes.
Then you became a pastor kid during your late teens.
Yeah.
I've been, you know, I always hear a lot of horror stories of PKs, of kids growing up in their dad's.
Yeah.
But you didn't experience that. You got to experience once you're a little, you know, you're a bit older.
Yeah.
Kind of more mature, you know, and everything.
Yes, kind of.
Kind of, you know, just, you know, teenager.
Precisely, kind of.
No slide on you. I'm just saying because
I accept it, dog.
we kind of crazy, you know, like we crazy
Yeah.
when teenagers, you know. And I just wonder, like, do you think God was protecting you by you not being a pastor kid throughout your whole childhood? You know, like, how do you think your life would have been different if you was a pastor kid your whole childhood?
Honestly, I don't think it's much different just because of the fact of like I was still raised in church and around it all the time. So even though I wasn't like doing like a lot of the behind the scenes stuff like I am now, I was still actively like at the same church every Sunday, every Wednesday. And if we weren't there, it was like we were because we were sick or something like that. There was a brief period of time, I'm forgetting how old I was, maybe like 10 or 11, where my parents, for some reason, I don't know if it was like a disagreement or if they just wanted to try out different churches, whatever the deal was. But we visited another church in our area, and we weren't at Crossroads for like one Sunday or two Sundays, something like that. But it wasn't a long time. But I don't think that I would necessarily. I don't think it would have been different. No, I feel like even though I wasn't a pastor's kid my whole life, I feel like God still had his hand on my life for that whole period. I don't know really how to explain it because like once I became a pastor's kid, I was all for it. Like I was super excited about being that, which now that I am one, it's not as flattering as people make it out to be. It's definitely an interesting situation, but I mean, like I said, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Everything has ups and downs, but I mean, I love it.
So I know you like were talking about like at the beginning, about where you got your heart broken, right? And that's
Yes.
when you became closer to Christ. So was it more of you got your heart broken and that was like you hit rock bottom and you got like you fully got saved and fully delved into it? Or was you more I was already saved, but it just pushed me further to depend on Christ?
I think I was already saved per se. I wasn't pursuing Jesus like I should have been, if that makes sense. Like I was taking more time talking to that individual on a daily basis, you know, making sure I was communicating with them more than I was prioritizing my time growing in my faith and growing with God. So like because I actually blamed God really for what happened because I felt like this person was the one for me. And when it turned out that they weren't, I was like, oh my gosh, God, like, how come this is happening? Like, you said this, this, and this, and I felt this, this, and this. And I just, like, my young, immature mind was like, I thought this was it. So why is this happening? So, like, it really led me down a aspect of, like, having to come back to realize that it's kind of like the same story as people go through church hurt almost. It's like you realize what happened to you wasn't Jesus because people are faulted. And so like even that situation, like God used it for his glory and his good, obviously. I grew from it. But like I mean, yeah, like It wasn't his fault. But he still used it for his glory and grow me.
Man, I mean, I legit relate to that though. Like heartbrokenness, like heartbrokenness, what is like what has been like, especially growing up, was one of the leading factors to me drawing closer to God.
It'll do it to you.
What now?
I said it'll do it to you.
Yeah, real. And I mean, I I guess I always knew what heartbrokenness was.
Yeah.
I guess we can segue into mine unless you're not finished or anything.
Well, I want to.
Well, I do want to ask, like,
Oh.
I do want to ask a real quick question. I mean, because of course we're going over our testimony, but we want to kind of get to let them know about us as well. So I mean, why don't you just tell us about like you make music? So I mean, why don't you tell us about that? I mean, so we can know more about that side of you, pretty much.
Me?
Yeah. Who else am I talking to?
Out.
Okay. Yeah. So I play guitar, drums, and piano, and sing. It's definitely my favorite instrument. People ask me that a lot, and I really don't have a good answer for that. It depends the song, because like some songs I really enjoy, because drums are a great stress reliever. So so I like different instruments on different songs. Like I like piano on slower songs, and it's also cool to play guitar on finger pick and stuff like that. It's fun to do. But as far as making music, it is a whole different animal than just playing on a Sunday service. Like when you hear yourself directly in your ear and you can hear every flaw, it's rough. Like recently, actually, me and Kyle were at a worship night, and I recorded one of the songs that Zeke actually sang it. After we got done in the night, we were in the car, and I played it back in the car, and he looked at me, and I went, "This sounds awful. Should I play it for the podcast?"
First thing I said to this man was, "Don't post that. Don't post that."
Should I play it or not?
No, we're not playing. No.
It was bad though. It was really bad. But yeah, like that night, my voice is already gone. I tried singing in a higher key than I could, and it didn't go well. But no, music is like literally me. Like I literally got a sign up here that says music. It is not to hear, it is to feel. And then I've got like a whole guitar poster and 2 little music notes, because like music is my life. Like that's what I love. It's what I would love to do for a living eventually, if God ever opens that door and it sees fit for me to do that. I love. Honestly, I almost love listening more than I love like singing, if that makes sense. Like I would like much rather turn on a 20-minute worship song and just sit there and let the Spirit move, and just let me be ministered to by God. Because if you don't do that, I can't go up there and lead as effectively. Because if you're giving out every single Sunday and you're never taking in, you're eventually just going to run out of fuel. That's just how it is. I mean, like, it's the same with a water bottle, right? If you drink the whole water bottle, it's all gone, and you have to fill it back up again. So that's one thing. Back to the whole, ministering thing on a Sunday is the way even though I love music with everything in me, I still have to take time and let God minister to me and fill me up before I can go and minister to others and fill them up.
That makes sense. I understand that.
So like, I don't like. So you're growing more in Christ as you're getting older and everything,
Sure.
and experiencing Him in deeper levels, because now you're giving your voice to Him, your skill playing to Him, your musician lifestyle to Him.
Yeah.
But like, what do you think was like beliefs that you had when you were younger that has changed or grown since you're getting older now?
Like a quality or what?
Well, like quality, or just like beliefs change. Like, is there some you used to believe that you don't anymore, and that or maybe you never believed, but after studying the word and everything, now you believe? Like,
Okay.
I'm just curious.
I would say the biggest thing is because, which we'll touch on this later again, but because we were all raised kind of, at least me and Breezy for sure, were raised in like an apostolic setting, and Kyle was raised in it to a portion as well, to an extent as well.
Yeah, I was more Pentecostal was what I was raised in. So
yeah, um there's this thing of like intercessory prayer, right? So like where you're like really, going at it in the spiritual warfare, you're really like going really deep and serious into your prayer. And that was almost a stigma in my mind I had when you prayed, sorry, that like you had to do that. Like you couldn't almost believe that you couldn't talk to God just like walking outside of your house or like just driving in your car or just like a natural simple conversation. And that was one thing that as I got older, and I'm gonna do a little plug here, it's gonna be funny. But Elevation song Talking to Jesus, that was one song that like I knew you were gonna do that. But that was one song that really like helped me and like made me realize like, hey, like you don't have to be perfect when you talk to him. Like it doesn't have to be every single word said right. Like you're gonna mess up. Like he's like talk to your father like you're his kid. That's really one of the lyrics in the song, and it's so true because people put almost like an outline of how to talk to God. And that's really not true at all. Like he is literally there. Like he wants to talk to you about every little thing. Like if you're frustrated, sad, happy, whatever it is, like you can literally, even in your thoughts, you can talk to him. It doesn't have to be words. I'm pretty sure there's even a scripture somewhere in Psalms talking about when David was in distress and he could barely, say a word. God was still hearing him and God was still there with him. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure there's one there. But that's one thing that I would say that I've grown in the most is just my relationship with Jesus, actually talking to him on a daily basis and not, putting limits on that.
Like, Micah, I know you said that, like, oh, your testimonial story might not be that big or anything, but if I'm being honest with you, I mean, there's thousands of believers who do grow up in church. That's their starting point of their faith, is being a child at church, growing in it. I mean, we all kind of have that similarity to begin with, all three of us, but like people can be inspired and can be touched, that instead of just like as you grew older that you decide, well, Jesus ain't really for me, I rather do my own stuff. Instead, God has a like built into your heart, like these skills, these gifts, these tendencies, as you might want to call them, of singing, musician, learning instruments, playing instruments. Instead of like, oh, I'm going to do my own thing. I mean, I have the skill, I have the talent. Maybe I should just start doing my own thing. But as you grew older, you gave those things to God. And that could be like a really good lesson for everybody. I mean, including me, that when we do have skills that we learn, when we do have certain talents, when we do have certain tendencies of learning things or uh, being artistic or creative, that as believers, instead of just automatically going to the world to share our gifts to, take it to God and let God
Yeah.
bless it and let God use it. So that's something that I feel like I took away from your story, your testimony, man.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to say real quick is speaking upon when Kyle brought up about how, whenever I was brokenhearted by that, there's a scripture in Psalms, I believe it's 34, I have pulled up from this year. Yeah, Psalms 34:18, it says, the Lord is close to the brokenhearted. And it doesn't mean that the Lord is like, never away from you, because it said, the Bible says he'll never leave us nor forsake us. And you can say that forward or backwards, fun fact. But I truly believe that when you are broken or in a very hurting state of being, that the Lord really does draw closer to you, because you are his kid and he is your father. You're the apple of his eye. You're priceless in his eyes. And whenever he sees his kid hurting, he's not just going to let it happen. Like he's not just going to let you lay there in distress and hurt and not care for you. However, he's also not going to do for you what you can't do for yourself. Like if you're not like you can sit there and be all down in yourself for forever as long as you want to, and Jesus can be trying to help you. He can be like, hey, I have joy, I have peace, I have comfort, like come to me and you can receive it. But you can just still lay there and sit there and you're downtrodden and be like, nah, I'm just meant to be like this forever. Because I forget what dude on Instagram said this, but he said that I believe it's in Psalms again. It says, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. It says walking through it, not running, not sprinting. Because we have to walk through it with ourselves. We have to do that personally. God's not gonna, drag us along. He's a gentleman. He's gonna ask us, open the door, be like, "Hey, come here, I got you." But it's still on us to accept that and go with him.
That's true. I agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, God puts things in our life that we can either accept or ignore. But it's better to accept the things that God has laid before us, because when we accept the things He has given us, whether it be good or bad, we can put down our own understanding and trust Him more.
Yeah.
But
That's even a verse too. What you just said.
I mean,
That's a verse actually.
oh, is it what it is?
It's trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding.
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
is that's a very core scripture, because people can get a plan in their minds, or like, this is how something's supposed to go, and then when it doesn't go that way, we can be like, oh, why didn't it go this way? And then you really have to realize and be like, hey, trust in Him, not on your own, because His ways are higher than our ways, His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. So I mean, like, there's a lot of things we're not gonna understand, we're not gonna see, but God promises that it works all out for our good if we just put our trust in Him with it.
That's true.
For sure.
Definitely.
You got any comments, Kyle?
No, but I mean, the only thing that I could say was I agree. Is that it's kind of the same thing with you know, with like your talents and stuff, that how you said like you can sit on them and you know just be like at a pity party, but you can do the same thing with kind of like your talents. Like, even though God gave us the talents, we still have to step forth and use them. And I feel like there's a way more of a fulfillment when you use them with Christ,
For sure.
than whenever you use them for, like, say, your own gain.
Yeah.
Because no matter how much I try to, like, whatever my talent ends up being, no matter how much I use it for the world, no matter how much I use it to make money, those two things, no matter how much people tell me I'm great at something, is never going to fulfill that need. That's why you see people who are rich, who
Kill themselves,
who have depression issues, who go through so many life issues, is because they thought that money would fulfill that need that they were missing. But
Yep.
in the end, it's not really what they needed.
Yep.
Now, it's the second part of it. Now we're going to segue into Fabrizio's testimony. So go ahead, Fabrizio, so we can just learn some more about you.
Okay. Well, it all started when I was born. I'm just, but not for real. My testimony, in a way, I don't know where to start, but I'm just literally gonna start from the beginning. Uh, I was born in West Virginia with these three guys, same state, same hometown, whatever you want to call it. And like Micah said, like, what really kind of pushed him to draw closer to God was heartbreak. And I kind of relate to that as well, but kind of for different reasons than his. Mine was I didn't grow up without dad. So my whole life, my father wasn't there for me, wasn't there with me. I grew up without a strong male figure. So I never really had anyone to say, I'm proud of you, son, or this is how you do it. Hey, you better not do it like that. You better do it like this. This is how you're supposed to be a good man for a woman, how to be a godly man, how to get things done around the community, being there for other people. I didn't grow up hearing that. So my whole childhood, I wouldn't say it was bad or it was like heartbreaking the whole time, but I missed out on a lot, growing in a single parent home. And, you know, which can be rough for a child. And for me, it was incredibly difficult because, you know, just having that missing piece in your life, you grow up and you feel incomplete. But what I'm grateful about is I did grow up in church, And growing up in church really taught me a lot. It taught me to serve God, to love God, to appreciate God. So my whole life, it's hard for me to say, oh, this is the day I got saved. I don't know about y'all, but y'all ever hear people say, oh, this is my second birthday? Like,
Yes, I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, like this is the day I was born again. I don't have that at all, because I just felt like as soon as I was small, as soon as I heard about Jesus, I was like that with him. Like I instantly felt like I could cling onto him. So growing up, I trusted God, and since I didn't have a father figure, I allowed God to be my father figure. But it still sucked because I still had to learn a lot of things, growing up, learning the hard way. And learning the hard way was through suffering, but not like the type of suffering that, you hear on like movies like, they grew up in poverty or anything like that. Like I was okay like that, but like what I suffered from was abuse. And it wasn't from my mom or anyone close like that. Or well, family, parent wise or grown individual. But I was molested when I was younger. I was molested when I was like 5 years old. And I remember them showing me pornography for the first time. And that completely messed me up. And when they were doing stuff to me, and when they were telling me to do stuff to them, but yeah, I suffered through things, but it wasn't through things like poverty or anything like that. Because I did grow up in a nice school and everything like that. The kind of suffering I went through, and here's a mature rating for anyone. I'm not going to go into details. I'm going to be general as possible. That way, y'all don't get like sick to y'all stomach when y'all hear this, but I just wanted to warn y'all ahead of time. Mature rating ahead, per se. So when I was around 5 years old, I was molested. I was molested by someone I knew. It wasn't a grown individual, and it wasn't like a parent figure, or, my mom or anything like that. But it was someone I did know. And I remember when that happened, I remember where I was, because I wasn't even living in West Virginia at the time. I was living in Virginia. Fun fact, I grew up in West Virginia, but I also moved to different states and always came back and everything growing up. But yeah, I was molested. And I remember the feeling I had when that was happening, the sickness I was feeling. Cause even then I was like, this isn't right. Something's wrong with this. This is disgusting. And I remember them showing me pornography on the TV. And I'm like, what the freak? What is this? What is happening? So like I never got to discover sex in a beautiful way. I discovered it in a very harsh, twisted, nasty, perverted way. And so that really had a huge effect on me growing up. I remember a few years had passed, like 1 to 2 years, maybe even 3. My mind gets kind of blurry during that time, but I remember I was in second grade, and I remember being depressed as a second grader. I remember walking down. I went to Mountain View Christian School, a nice little private school in the Oak Hill area of West Virginia. And I just remember walking down those hallways, seeing all these kids smiling, playing. I just felt so dead inside. Like, I legit felt dead inside. And I was in second grade. Thing is, I wouldn't show that to my teacher or my friends, but I held it in. I held it in, and it was just, I felt like I was digging a grave for me to lay in. And I remember it got to the point where I just couldn't hold it into anymore. I was back home. I was walking back and forth in this hallway, and I just kept repeating in my mind what happened to me being molested. And I couldn't handle it anymore. I started crying and sobbing. I went to my mom and jumped in her lap. I remember this vividly. I jumped in her lap. I told her what happened. But even after telling her what happened, it didn't necessarily heal me or touch me, because it was some deep down spiritually that affected me. But as time went on, now I'm in elementary or middle school-ish type. It was like third grade and fourth grade and fifth grade. I started getting a lot better. That those thoughts kind of dissipated. It was still there deep inside. It kind of dissipated, and I was homeschooled for third grade through fifth grade. So about 2 years, no, about 3 years of homeschooling. And I went to this homeschooling area, this kid organization, and it was really fun. It was called TLC. I got to spend time with other homeschoolers, and that was a really eye-opening experience for me, because I seen different types of people. I was friends with a special ed student, and I didn't never had experience with someone who was on the autistic spectrum. And so, I never knew what to expect, but God showed me, like, their special souls, like that, they had value, and not to, like, make fun of them or anything like that. But anyways, I was homeschooled, and it was run by this minister, this pastor, and his wife. And I remember they invited our homeschooling organization to their church. And I remember one time they were in the middle of service, and I got up and I decided to walk to the front near the platform area, I guess you could call it. And they let me speak. And I remember, just talking about how we can fall on the ground and we can get cuts and bruises on our knees, but God is there to pick us up, that we can endure until the end, that He will protect us, though we are physically harmed, emotionally harmed. God still protects our spirit. When we give our life to Christ, He protects us from the wrath of God, so that we might dwell in heaven with Him. So that was something I began to understand a whole lot growing up around elementary. And then when I got to middle school, that's when everything was changing for me. I was friends with kids that were very bad influence. So, man, I was like cursing and stuff like that. And I was, as guys, we were growing, we were maturing, going through puberty and stuff like that. And that's when I went through puberty, that's when all the things came rushing back in from when I was molested. So I guess it was my body going through those changes reminded me of what my body went through when I was younger. And so I allowed that pain to really cause me to delve into some perverted stuff, perverted sexual things, you know, pornography, and just, I'm not going to go in detail about that, but like masturbation and pornography, lust was just eating at my soul, eating at my heart. And that's something that actually lasted for years throughout my teenage years, my young adult years and everything like that. And so that's when 6th grade is when I started to be very harsh on myself too. And then 8th grade through 9th grade was just about the same, but I back in high school, like 10th through 12th, I had friends and I started to trust God more. My relationship with him deepened. I remember being more involved at the church, having Bible studies. Kyle, you and me became friends with when I was in high school. Fun fact, though, about me and Kyle is somehow we got in an argument. We threatened to fight each other, and then we stopped talking for like I don't know if it was for a year or for a few months. I can't remember. And then I remember you became like for a brief time you was like assistant coach for Mountain View or something. And then we just started talking all over again and we became friends, close friends when I started going to college and everything. Then when college started, that's when my relationship with Christ was very complex. Because that's when I started to like really, really, really like girls, if I'm being honest. Like when I really wanted to be in relationships and everything. And look, I lost my virginity when I got married. Okay, I will admit that. But man, I was getting wild. I mean, I'm just being honest. I was doing stuff that God didn't want me to do.
That's when Song of Solomon came out. No, I'm joking.
Yo, that's messed up. But like I allowed my flesh to just go wild. But at the other side, on the other end of it, my relationship with Christ was kind of getting stronger, as in, like, I was getting to know more about him. I was studying the Bible. I was taking him more serious. But on the other hand, I'm like getting all freaky. And I was being promiscuous, is the other terms. And I'm not proud of that. And I mean, that stuff still bothers me even today. I mean, I'm forgiven and everything, but it still just bothers me. I know God has forgiven me and everything. But it was starting a lot happened during this time. It was pre-COVID. So it was around 2018, 2019 that I started to become the youth assistant, youth teacher at our church at Crossroads.
Those are the glory days. Those were our glory days.
Yeah, for real. And like
me and Breezy just got along so well, it wasn't even funny.
Yeah. Me and Micah did not get along.
Y'all were best friends at that point in time.
Yeah, complete best friends.
Y'all were closer than me and Fabrizio were.
Yeah.
Real close, like that.
Yeah, close like this.
Whoa. Hey.
No, I meant like, we were, it looks like I'm not trying to.
What do you mean, far away?
No. Like we were close. How do y'all, I'm trying to do the freaking this thing. I can't. Anyways, I'm trying to, for our audio listeners, I'm, doing the finger wrapped around each other to show close.
I'm glad you said wrapped around up to that.
Yeah. But nah, me and him, we didn't get along at all. I mean, we were close, but only because we despised each other and, wanted to fight each other, basically.
Which they were valid reasons.
I guess, but I can't remember just because it was petty stuff.
Well, the main one was close to home. I'm not gonna say it.
Anyways, so I was like a youth assistant, I guess. I did not qualify myself as youth pastor because I didn't go through any seminary or like, that type. I was just basically kind of pushed along that lines because we were going through a transition anyways, a pastoral transition. So Micah's dad was actually the youth pastor. And so when he became the pastor, there was no one at all to be there for the youngsters. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll do it. I can't remember how it went on. But like part of me, and I love being part of that. I love being the youth minister or youth helper, whatever. And I went, like I said, I went not pastor for sure. But like I was helping them, I was reading the word, I was praying, relationship with God felt like it was like climbing. But at the other side, I was still, even during that time, I was struggling with pornography. I was struggling with lust. And I felt too ashamed to talk about it because here I'm helping the youngsters, but I'm dealing with all this stuff. I didn't feel like I really had anyone to talk to about that because I felt like I was in a position now where I kind of felt alone, if that made sense, because I'm supposed to help these youngsters, but I didn't feel like I had any help myself. Not saying I didn't, but that's just how I felt because I mean, your dad was also learning to be a pastor. You know, Pastor Tim, Pastor Vicar was just now learning to be a pastor and everything. So he was kind of on his own island himself learning. And, that was just a tough time. I was in relationships. I remember I was in a relationship with a girl back in Wisconsin. And when she broke up with me, I was devastated. I was mourning because not she broke up with me like a week or 2 weeks right before my grandfather passed away. And so I was dealing with so many heart issues. I tried even calling her, and I mean, she didn't respond. She had someone she knew say, "Hey, sorry that your grandfather passed away, but she doesn't want to talk to you." That relationship was kind of getting toxic at the end because I started being a jerk because without a father, I never really knew how to really treat a woman. And anyways, going fast forward, it was basically the same thing over and over again. I would get in a relationship, and because I didn't feel good about myself, I didn't feel confident. I felt ashamed because everything that happened to me. I was having a rocky relationship with my mother at the time. I didn't have a relationship with my dad. I just like started saying screw everything. I was dealing with depression on and off. And I just, while also being a minister to the youth, and my life was basically really crumbling apart. And I was getting these relationship with these girls. They wouldn't last that long. So I'm like, what's wrong with me? And like, something has to be wrong with me. I mean, there was. I was relying on other people to make me whole instead of relying on God to make me whole. Yes, I was reading the word, I was praying, but I was disconnecting myself still from God. It was 2020 that really, really changed, and it changed for everybody because of the whole, what I'm saying, the whole COVID.
Say pineapple.
Pineapple.
Everyone that I know on podcast says pineapple.
Y'all know what I mean when I say pineapple. I mean something
They're
else.
they're gonna know now.
Yeah, the whole 2020 pandemic. I'll just say that. I mean, anyways, and that really changed a lot for me because I was home the whole time. School was out. It was like near the spring and summer, so I wasn't in school. I just finished my fourth year of college, which I didn't go back, but that's neither here or there. And so I'm like, man, there's enough else for me to do. So I just started praying, started seeking God a lot more. He was definitely now helping me with pornography. Still was struggling with it though. Still was struggling with it. And so I was trusting God during this time because everything was going crazy. And that's why I decided to dive into like doing spoken poetry, spoken poems, and also doing like kind of music videos type of things. And also that's when I was also like starting to really teach in a different way because I was doing Instagram lives, and I became part of this Bible study group on Instagram. And that's how I actually met my wife, was through there. We met through Instagram Bible study chat, and we talked from there. And then that's when my life has changed more because I was working, had a job, I saved up money. I was gonna buy a camera, but what I decided to do instead was buy plane tickets to go to Utah to basically meet my future wife. She wasn't my wife at the time, but I knew I loved her and I knew I wanted her in my life. So I flew out to see her. We instantly like bonded, and then she flew back. Well, no, she didn't fly back. We took a freaking Greyhound bus all the way from Utah to West Virginia, and that was a 2,000-mile bus ride. And there were some crazy people. Like, you wouldn't believe the type of people. I remember seeing somebody with a freaking lighter going up and down the aisle of the bus. I'm like, what the freak is going on? It was like at 12 at night, anyways. It was like, yo, this guy is bugging. But, anyways, she got back here and we were connecting more and everything, taking her to church. We were going to church together. And we started reading Genesis all the way back, watching videos. And then we decided to get married. We got married at a courthouse. We was like, you know what? Let's just get married because, we don't want to, we don't want to be two people living together unmarried because that's not healthy. That's not good. We love each other and everything like that. And we didn't want to be living in sin or anything like that because it was becoming a burden in our heart and our soul. And we're like, yeah, we can't do this anymore. So we decided to get married. And that was a crazy, crazy day. We drove, had our honeymoon in Charleston, and which is the capital of West Virginia. And then we came back and we told everybody that we got married. In fact, our honeymoon night, uh, it was around like 3 p.m. or not 3 p.m., 3 a.m. And my mom called me. She didn't know what was going on. She didn't know what happened. She's like, yo, son, where are you? Where's Hannah at? What y'all doing? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I didn't know how to tell her. And she ended up saying, did y'all get married? I was like, yeah. She's like, yo, what? Anyways, we got married, and my mom threw us a little wedding party, whatever. And even at this time, me and my mom still going through a lot. Our relationship is a lot better now, but me and her, we're just going through a lot. And anyways, that's what kind of why I'm in Utah now, is just because God was trying to pull me away from everything so I could focus on him more. I've been in Utah for about almost 2 years. It's been about a year and a half now. And this is really where God is now using me a whole lot more in different ways than I thought. As in, like, he's been basically purifying me. He's been telling me how to act as a man, how to be a man, how to be financially responsible, how to love your wife. I'm telling you, man, the first year of my marriage was rough. It was bad. Like, me and Hannah was arguing all the time, fighting, saying things to each other we shouldn't have been saying. And I mean, that hurt us. We were hurting each other. But after a year, and now, especially after having our son, we've been communicating a lot more. We've been talking more. We've been loving to each other a lot more. So our marriage has, like, definitely increased in, I won't say value, but in trust, in integrity, in hope, and love. And, you know, of course, I'm not perfect. Like, being married showed me how imperfect I was. It showed me, whoa, I have a lot to learn. I have a lot more room to grow in. So, I mean, that's where I'm at now, just trusting God more. And the more independent that I'm becoming, the more dependent I'm becoming on Christ. But yeah, that's my story, and so far, and I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, so I know, like, not like kind of to go back, like what you're talking about. Like, has your struggle with, like, I guess you can say, pornography or the molestation portion of it, has it affected your marriage in any way, or do you feel like you had already worked past that
Uh,
near the beginning of it or anything?
no, it definitely impacted my marriage hardcore. Like, um, it was hard for me to be intimate with my wife because I had everything in my mind about, you know, just I remembered how it was when I got molested, and it kind of just couldn't leave my mind. And so, and not only that, but my previous relationships were also, the guilt of them, the shame of them were just messing with me. And so it definitely affected my marriage a lot. I mean, it's a lot better now, of course, but it definitely did. Like, I was struggling with pornography um in my first year of marriage. And I remember telling Hannah about it, and I mean, she was hurt. She had to learn to forgive me about that type of stuff and help me, and, you know, keep me accountable. And whenever I get the urge to look at pornography now, I just, you know, what I had to learn was those people that are on those videos and photos, whatnot, they're being abused. They're abusing themselves. They could be victims of sex trafficking. And, you know, while I'm watching them, I'm degrading them, and they're degrading themselves. And so that helped me a lot, just to realize, like, being sober minded about what I'm watching. But yeah.
Gotcha. Did you have any questions or anything, Micah?
No, I'm good. We're in an hour and 8 minutes though.
Oh, we are at an hour and 8 minutes. Okay. So, Fabrizio, I mean, I guess you could say things. Pretty much saying, like, things are better now. Like, you've kind of dealt with it. Like, how was, like, what was your way? I guess, like, your method, I guess you could say, of dealing with it.
Doing what?
Um, like, once you got in your marriage and dealing with, like, being able to, like, what was your method of, like, being able to get past pornography? Was it just like a type of thing where it was like, okay, I'm gonna stop this, and, like, it didn't, and you just never picked it up again? Or was it a thing that you messed up a couple times on after you decided you was gonna stop doing it? Like, what was, like, that type of area of it, I guess you
Yeah,
would say?
it was definitely thing. And I'm ashamed to admit that, but it was an on and off thing. And the method was being spiritually fed. And I hadn't found it. I mean, I just now started going to new church, but even then, I started listening, podcasts and of men speaking about what kind of spiritual attitude to have, what kind of mannerisms to have, and just exposing the stuff that of pornography that I was dealing with. Like just hearing other men talk about what they gone through helped a lot. And just being, just spiritually fed, because then you get refocused. Your eyes are no longer on the problem, but they're now on their solution, which is Christ. And that, also, I had my son in February of last year of 2022. And, even then, after he was born, I was dealing with it. But it was horrible and everything. But him being born, realized like I had to be there for him. I had to be strong for him. He can't grow up with a dad who's doing this stuff, who's watching this stuff, because that's something I didn't get to have. But I want something great for him. I want him to have a good dad. I want him to have a great dad. I want to have a man to look up to, saying, if he can do it, so can I. So, yeah.
Then I will say I will have to say this. I have to give you and you and your wife kudos because you being able one to admit it to her, which a lot of men don't. Like whenever they're struggling with like pornography and stuff, they tend to keep it to themselves. One, they don't confess it to maybe another guy who's walking the same faith. They also don't usually confess it to their wives. So I have to give you and your wife 100% kudos for one, because a lot of relationships end whenever somebody finds out that they've stepped into that, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have to give both of y'all a lot of kudos for both of y'all being able to be one, mature spiritually and physically, and trusting in each other and God, and continuing to walk in your marriage. So,
That's all good. Honestly, I have a great wife. So, I mean, very patient, super patient, extremely patient. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's been a long 2 years now with the whole moving thing, but it's also been a very fast 2 years of, getting a place to live, going to different jobs, interviewing, finding a new church, just all this type of stuff. I mean, it's having a son, having a child, becoming a father. It's a lot that's happened to me these past 2 years, and God's been helping me, because I wouldn't be here without him, honestly. And one thing that the method that's helped me is to realize the grace of God, because a lot growing up, I sort of believed that I had to be good in order for God to love me. I had to be good so I wouldn't lose fellowship with God. But what I'm learning now is that God loves me. God likes me. Like he genuinely likes me. He wants to be with me. And so, y'all give me 1 second.
okay.
Y'all hear? Y'all hear any crying? Oh, okay. All right, I can. He's crying a little bit. So okay. So let me start by.
Cut.
So that God's grace is sufficient. That no sin is too big that God can cover. And plus learning that God's sacrifice, Jesus' sacrifice is ultimate. That there's nothing greater than his sacrifice. There's nothing greater than his love. So when you're covered by the grace of God, when you are saved, there is nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do to obtain God's grace because it is given by him freely. His love you can't earn. His presence you cannot earn. He's the one that goes down to that one sheep to pull them out of the pit. That's what he did to me. He pulled me out of the pit. And he set me up. He robed me in a fine garment when I was filthy as a pig. He showed me what love was. And it's because of his love I can love. And also just learning about his grace is what really changed my methodology of how to abstain from pornography. Because if I'm being honest, there's like something I still struggle with here and there. But like the best thing to do is like, don't stay up too late playing video games or whatever. And always lay next to my wife at night. Cause if I'm feeling some that way, she's there to help me, And so being transparent and open and honest in your marriage is important. That will help me too with dealing with pornography and everything. But like just truly understanding God's grace and truly understanding what he's placed in me, the Holy Spirit that he's placed in me has helped me tremendously.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, I think this would be like a good place to end. So I just want to say I want to thank both of y'all for like sharing both of y'all's testimony. And I mean, of course, I'm gonna be sharing mine on the next episode, but I just want to say thank y'all for sharing, and for anybody who listens to this, I want to say thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
This has been a good time.
Thank you for listening to three wackos that think they know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining us on the podcast. And one last
That's
time,
all, folks.
This is the Jesus Method. We'll see y'all next time.
All right. Peace.
Bye-bye.